In today's episode, you can get an aerial view of the new California garden, look at all the harvests we made this month, and also look at some cool things to do in your garden. So let's begin with the garden tour. Here you can get an aerial view of how the new California garden looks like, and I know a lot of you have requested me to post a video on the progress of the garden. And as you can see here, we have a side yard as well as a backyard that gets plenty of sun and should be a great place to grow a lot of plants. You can see that we do have a 5-foot wall, boundary wall around the garden, and while it does cast some kind of a shadow, it mostly is not a problem because as long as the plant is a little higher than the ground, like not really towards the ground, it really doesn't make a difference because it can still get some sun. As you can see here, some of these potted plants are still getting full sun, although they are placed in the shade. So overall, I think the new California garden has not only more space but also a lot of sun, and I really can't wait to get all the raised beds in so that we can start our gardening. And one of the reasons we haven't started doing our backyard is we do need to conform to some rules, especially in the front yard, not really the backyard, but we are still getting some approvals done so that we can get started on our backyard project. And we got the new DJI Mavic Mini to get an aerial footage of the garden. So if you're interested in purchasing this drone, do check out the link in the product description and the comments below. And now let's look at all the harvests we made, starting with eggplants. Now I know it's November and it's been quite cool these days, but we also had a lot of hot days here in Southern California. And because of that, all the summer vegetables are still producing. And you can see here, this is the Little Prince eggplant, a great variety of eggplant that I can highly recommend that you grow in your home garden. And we got a lot of eggplants this month just from this container. So you can see how prolific this eggplant variety is. While it's cold, it's still producing eggplants. But not only is the plant prolific, we did have some varying degrees of heat in the past few days, which is why we got a lot of eggplants. Moving on to peppers. We harvested a lot of varieties of peppers from our potted plants. This is the Thai pepper, the hot Thai pepper, which was producing a lot of peppers. And this was actually one of the most prolific peppers during the cooler days. And as you can see, beautiful looking peppers. And we also harvested the cayenne peppers. Now the cayenne peppers are one of my favorites to grow, and hopefully I can save this plant for the next season as well, because this plant produces a lot of peppers. And we also harvested some Thai chili peppers. This is another variety of Thai chili peppers which produces longer peppers. So overall, I was very happy with the peppers that we harvested from our garden and just from these potted plants. Pineapples. We had our pineapple plant growing, and I was showing you the little pineapple that was growing on one of these mother plants, and we harvested this pineapple. And a lot of you have asked me this question: how many pineapples does this plant produce? Well, it keeps producing pineapples one after the other. So we've harvested about 4 or 5 pineapples already from this plant. Moving on to tomatoes. I know that it's very rare to see a tomato harvest during the month of November, but because of the afternoon sun and all the heat that we've been getting, our beefsteak tomato plant that was growing and which I had showed you some time ago produced this beautiful red tomato that we harvested from our home garden. And finally, ivy gourd. Ivy gourd is another summer vegetable, but we were getting a lot of heat, a lot of afternoon heat. Because we have a south-facing backyard, it gets sun pretty much throughout the day. And although this ivy gourd plant had gone dormant for some time, it came back with a vengeance and it produced a lot of ivy gourds, as you can see here. Now, ivy gourd is also a warm season crop and it will not produce a lot during the winter time. But as I mentioned, we did get some warm days and we also get a lot of sun in our backyard, which is why you're seeing these ivy gourds. Now, it's very important to make sure that you're getting a lot of southern sun exposure. Since the United States is in the northern hemisphere, there will be plenty of sun on the southern sky, the south sky. So you need to make sure that when you're planning your backyard, that your backyard or your side yard should face south, which is when you will get the best sun exposure. So as long as your home faces the north or the west, you should be getting plenty of sun in your backyard. And as you can see, the potted plant, these are just about 2 feet or 3 feet tall, but they're able to get all the sunlight from the early morning sun And you can also see some ripe ivy gourds which may not make a good harvest. But overall, I was very pleased with the amount of ivy gourds that we harvested from the home garden. And now let's look at some things to do in your garden. We are making some additional potting mix for some of the plants that we are planting. And we planted some interesting plants this month, which is why we wanted to create some potting mixes. So for the potting mix, we're going to be using a mix of worm castings, peat moss, vermiculite. So first we take some peat moss. These are 2 parts of peat moss, 1 part of worm castings. And worm castings make excellent fertilizer, by the way. And we are also adding some vermiculite, 1 part of vermiculite. And this makes for a great mix. And you can not only use this mix for refilling the soil in your plants, you can also use it for seed starting mixes. And we're going to be planting some radish seeds in this container. Now I also added some sand in this container. Radish plants love sand. So all I'm going to do is sprinkle some radish seeds here, top it off with some peat moss, just so that the seeds are secured. And you can just randomly sow your seeds in this container. It's a larger container. And then just make sure that your seeds are moist so that they can sprout and then grow properly. And it's winter time, so make sure that you're watering all your plants. It is easy to miss watering during the cooler season just because you're not out in your garden that often. So there we have it, folks. That was our episode on the California garden for the month of November. If you like this video, do give us a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions, put them in the comments box below. We'll see you again soon. Happy gardening.